So hello students, today I will be taking quality control. This is very important topic for MBBS students. This is a practical competency 11.16 on quality control. So what do you understand by quality control? Quality control in clinical biochemistry laboratory refers to maintenance of quality of the laboratory tests during analysis. Quality control is the study of sources of variation and procedures used to recognize and minimize them, including all sources such as random variation, bias, which arise within laboratory between receipt of specimen and dispatch of report. So now these are the important terminologies. What do you understand by calibrator or control? So calibrator, it is a material of known concentration used to calibrate a measurement procedure or to compare the response obtained with the response of the test specimen or a sample. And control is a solution lyophilized preparation or pool of collected human or artificially derived material intended for use in the quality control process. Now coming to the different components of quality control samples are expected to be similar and tested identically to patient sample. So the purpose of repeated quality control testing is to validate precision and accuracy of the results of the samples analyzed. So there is a very little difference between the precision and the accuracy. What do you understand by precision? It is the precision is basically this refers to the reproducibility of the result. If suppose I will explain this with the help of an example. If one technician performs glucose analysis on the same sample on three different occasions, if he performed the test, if suppose glucose on three different occasions and he got the result as 100 mg per dl, 99 mg per dl and 101 mg per dl in respectively, we can say then the results have been reproduced very well. We can say that these results have reproduced very well and the precision is very good. Okay, so this is the precision. So this refers to the reproducibility of the result. Then next is the accuracy. So accuracy, it is the degree of closeness of the results to the actual value. If suppose the value of glucose is 100 mg per dl, and if one technician analyzed the same sample and he got the result as 99 mg per dl, second technician does the same test on the same sample and gets the result of 95 mg per dl. So then we can say that first technician is very close to the true value, as we know that the value actually the value is 100 mg per dl. So when first technician performed, he got the result as 99 mg per dl and second got as 95 mg per dl. So we can say that the first technician is very close to the actual value. So always remember that values further away from the true value, they are less accurate than those are the closer values. So this is there is a very little difference between the precision and the accuracy. So then this is also very important, specificity. Specificity of a reaction denotes that only one substance will answer that particular test. For example, this also I will explain with the help of an example. Like in case of GOD-POD method, glucose oxidase peroxidase method, only glucose molecules are assayed, not other hexoses. So it is very specific method. And as you all know that enzymes are specific to their substrates. So all the enzymatic methods are more specific as compared to the other methods. So, but if the reducing property of the glucose is utilized for the assay purpose, for example, Nelson, there are other methods of glucose estimation like Nelson-Somogyi method or Follenbu method. So, in these methods, other reducing agents in the blood will interfere in the reaction and hence specificity is lowered. Okay? So specificity is determined by the method of the analysis. So if a test is specific, we can say sensitive, accurate and precise, then its results are within the reliable quality. Then comes the sensitivity. So both have very little difference, we can say. The ability of the analytical method to detect smallest amount of measured analyte. If we can detect the smallest amount of measured analyte, so that method is, we can say that method is very sensitive. For example, Biuret method is used for the solutions having few grams of protein per dl. As you all know that Biuret reagent is not so sensitive to detect, so it can detect only the protein in grams per dl. Then second method is spectrophotometric method. So this is useful to detect a few. So this can detect up to few mg of protein per dl. And lastly, ELISA method. This is the most sensitive method as it can analyze micrograms of the proteins per dl. Thus, ELISA method is the most sensitive one. So this is the sensitivity, we can say. So this is methods. This depends, sensitivity depends on the method. Then this is very important part of quality control, that what are the sources of error. So we have divided these errors into two: pre-analytical phase and the analytical phase. So it involves all stages of laboratory operations, that is, collecting samples, preserving or transporting it to the lab, its preparation and analysis in the laboratory, and then reporting the final result. So, broadly, these are divided into two phases. First is the pre-analytical phase, and second is the analytical phase. So, in the pre-analytical phase, this phase begins from the time the sample is collected from the patients till the time it is put to analysis. So what all parameters, or we can say what all variables are there in the pre-analytical? First is the requisition of a test. The appropriate test should be requested and performed. So in this case also, sometimes it happens that sugar is asked and we have performed urea in that particular test. So this comes under the pre-analytical error. The appropriate test should be requested and performed. Then comes the patient identification. So it sometimes it happens that wrong patient is analyzed. So it is important to identify a patient accurately so that blood is collected from the correct person. Name, age, sex, and central registration number should be noted correctly. Drawing blood from the wrong person or labeling the correct patient sample with a different patient's label can certainly contribute to laboratory error. So this is another laboratory error. Then next is the patient preparation. This is also very important. So prior to collecting specimens for biochemistry, certain patient variables need to be considered. So I have given here the major points in this patient preparation. For certain biochemistry analytes such as glucose, cholesterol, triglyceride, patients need to be fasting. So there are few parameters which need fasting. So there should be ideally 8 to 12 hours of fasting, and we take the blood and we analyze these parameters. They are glucose, cholesterol, triglyceride, etc. Then other analytes such as cortisol and the adrenocorticotropin, they have diurnal variations. So we have to look the this thing where the analyte is at its highest level in the morning and levels gradually decrease during the course of the day. So a change in posture from lying to upright increases secretion of catecholamines, aldosterone, renin, ADH. Catecholamine secretion doubles within 10 minutes, and aldosterone and renin doubles in 1 hour. So you can see that these parameters depend on posture. So values vary within few minutes to 1 hour. Release of intracellular potassium from muscle causes an increase in the potassium after 30 minutes of standing. Then this is also very important, selecting the site. So at the same time, if patient is asked most of the investigations, then we need more blood. So for that vein should be thick, so that appropriate amount of blood is we can take the appropriate amount of blood. Selecting the appropriate site for venipuncture can contribute to a better quality sample. The preferred site is the median cubital vein. This median cubital vein is the preferred site. This is the median cubital vein, and this is the preferred site for taking blood sample. Over here we can say at the side of your thumb is your cephalic vein. Here at the side of your little finger is your basilic vein, and in between the cephalic and the basilic vein we have this median cubital vein. This is the preferred site for blood collection. So this vein is usually thick and it is easier to access. Then next is the site preparation. So prior to venipuncture, the site should be cleansed with alcohol, and cleansing starts at the center of the vein and should continue outward in concentric circles. Before performing the venipuncture, the alcohol should be allowed to air dry. Okay, otherwise it will lead to hemolysis. This will help to ensure that the specimen is not contaminated with alcohol, as this can lead to hemolysis. Hemolysis can result in the spurious elevation of such analytes as potassium, lactate dehydrogenase, iron and magnesium in the lab. The next is the tourniquet application and time. So tourniquet should be applied approximately 3 to 4 inches above the venipuncture site. The tourniquet should be on the arm no longer than 1 minute. A good rule of thumb to determine the 1 minute tourniquet time is to remove the tourniquet when blood starts to flow into the first tube of blood being drawn. So prolonged tourniquet time can lead to an increase in various chemistry analytes including serum protein, potassium, lactic acid due to hemo concentration of the blood at the puncture site. So prolonged tourniquet time will lead to the false high results of these parameters like proteins, potassium, lactic acid, etc. due to hemo concentration. Then what is turnaround time? Turnaround time is also very important. This is the time required from the specimen reaching the laboratory and result being dispatched should be kept minimum. This should be kept minimum. Okay, so time of arrival, completion of the test and dispatch should be noted. Always when the patient comes with the sample, so we should allow him to ask him to write down the time, and then we should see when we dispatch the report, so that time should be minimum. Time required from the specimen reaching the laboratory and the result being dispatched should be kept minimum. Then next is the order of draw. So for taking samples in more than one vacuotenus, when we need to take sample in more than one vacuotenus, then we have to follow this order. So following the correct order of draw during venipuncture is critical to ensure accurate test results. CLSI, that is Clinical and Laboratory Standards Institute, formerly have established recommendations for the proper order of draw for evacuated blood collection tubes. Now in this, first we should take blood culture tube, then second is the coagulation tube. For coagulation profile it is blue top, then serum tube red top, then next is the EDTA tube, that is the lavender top for hematological investigations, complete hemogram, etc. Then lastly gray top, that is the fluoride tube for glucose estimation. Then proper tube mixing, this is also very important. All tubes with additives need to be inverted upside down by holding the tube in between thumb and the index finger to mix the additive evenly with the blood. Okay, so tubes with clot activator should be inverted 4 times to mix the activator with the blood and help the specimen clot completely. So we should not shake the tube vigorously, we should allow it to invert upside down twice or thrice for mixing of the clot activator, and before centrifuging we should allow it to rest for few minutes. Then correct specimen volume. So always remember, whenever the vacuotenor is of 5 ml, so try to take 5 ml blood. and whenever it is of 3 ml, try to take 3 ml. If you disturb this blood to additive ratio, then we get false results. So this is also one of the pre-analytical variable. Then expiry date, of course, we should not collect blood in the vacutainers that are expired. That leads to decreased vacuum as well as potential changes in any additives in the tubes. Then proper tube handling and specimen processing. So whenever this red top tubes and the gel tubes, they need to clot completely prior to centrifugation. Always allow them to rest for at least 30 to 40 minutes and then centrifuge, otherwise it will hemolyzed if the clot is properly, clot formation is not taken place, and if we have centrifuged, then the sample, there are chances that the sample can hemolyze. So blood specimen in red tubes and those in gel tubes should be allowed to clot for 30 to 40 minutes to ensure complete clot formation. After that, we can centrifuge it. Then other pre-analytical variables, sample collected in a wrong vacutainer, details written are not clearly readable. So sample received is hemolyzed or if or very minimal in quantity. These are also the this thing. Any such error occurring at any of these stages is called pre-analytical error. So now we have finished with the pre-analytical variables or the errors. Then next is the analytical variables. So this phase begins with the sample preparation followed by its analysis. So the analysis part is the analytical variable. So what all errors can come during this phase, analytical phase? Faulty calibration of the instrument can lead to false result. Then quality of reagent used is not up to the mark. Then interference by other substances due to improper washing or preparation of reagents. Then next is the sample mix-up. If the reagent or something is not mixed up properly, then also it leads to the analytical error. Then comes the post-analytical variable. Errors after analysis of the sample. Most commonly it is due to the mixing up of results during reporting. So this is known as the transcription error. The report of X goes to Y by mistake. This is the transcription error and this comes in the post-analytical variable. Also there is delay in delivering the report, which is often critical in acute clinical conditions. So these come in the post-analytical variables. So the most important part of quality control, it is mainly of two types: internal quality control and the external quality control. So what do you understand by internal quality control? Peripheral laboratory itself makes a reference standard serum sample and checks the results on a daily basis. This is called internal quality control. So whenever a lab performs the quality control test daily, so the internal quality material, it can be either obtained from reputed firms in ready-made form like Rendox, Roche, etc. They used to provide quality control vials, and we used to calibrate the machine with that. Then second is pooled sera. We pool the sera and we analyze in all our labs. This is another way of conducting internal quality control. Then tests are run only if results of QC material are acceptable. If the QC material is not out of limit, so only then we can analyze the samples. So internal quality control samples allow the laboratory to identify errors and monitor accuracy and precision of the assays. Now, what are the different kinds of errors? One is the systematic error. So, change in the mean of the control value. Systematic error is change in the mean of the control values. So, this systematic error is errors are caused by changes in the reagent, either in the reagent lot, then changes in the calibrator lot, deterioration of reagents and instruments such as lamp, etc. Then random error. So technically random error is any deviation away from an expected result. So what are the causes? Random errors are caused by errors in performing the test, such as incomplete mixing of reagents. So this is one of the random error. If there is incomplete mixing of reagents, this is technical error. And fluctuations in the electrical supply, instrumental error. So all these leads to random error. Now the Levy-Jennings chart. This is also known as the LJ chart. So in this, control specimens are analyzed during each run and the value plotted on the chart. When control values are within the control limits, that is plus minus 3 standard deviation, patient's values can be reported. If the control values or the mean values, they are within the control limits, that is plus minus 3 standard deviation, patient values can be reported. Even if a single control value is out of limit, reporting should be stopped. Resolve the problem, repeat the entire run of the specimen and control, and then for this plot, now you can see this is one of the Levy-Jennings chart for cholesterol. So this is for the whole month from first day to the last day, that is the 30th day. This is of the cholesterol in mg per dl. So in this you can see this green one is the mean, and above this is plus 1 SD, this is yellow one is the plus 2 SD, and this red one is the plus 3 SD standard deviation. And below the green line, this is mean, this is minus 1 SD, this is minus 2 SD, and red one is the minus 3 SD. So if you can see that if it is all the values or mean values are within plus minus 3 standard deviation, so we can say results are acceptable and we can release the reports. Now in this you can say on the 5th day, this is violating the rule and this value is crossing this minus 3 standard deviation. So there is a problem. We should rectify this problem. Again, we should calibrate the machine and then only we can analyze the sample. So you can say that even one value is out of limit, so we cannot release the reports or we cannot analyze the samples further. We should rectify the problem and after that only we can analyze the sample and release the reports. Now there is another rule, that is Westgard multi-rule chart for the quality control. This uses the same procedure using two different controls, but the control limits show 1s, 2s and the 3s values. Now in this you can see here, these are the Westgard rules. 1 2s, it means one value outside 2SD. This is the warning rule. Then 1 3s, it means one value outside 3 standard deviation. This is due to the random error. Then 2 2s, that is two values outside 2SD. This comes under the systematic error. Then R 4s, R means random. 4s means one value outside the 4s standard deviation. Then 3 1s, that is three values outside 1 SD on the same side of the mean. Then 4 1s, it means four values outside 1 SD. Then 10x, it means 10 values on the same side of the mean. So only first one, that is only one value outside 2SD. This is the warning rule, and rest all these values are not acceptable, 2 to 7. So we can say that we have to follow these rules. If any one of the rule is violating, we cannot analyze the samples further. We should rectify the problem, we should calibrate again, and we should we should do controls again and then calibrate the machine, and then only we can analyze the samples. So this is the graph showing 1 2s rule. You can see here, this is mean, this is plus standard deviation 2SD. So this is above 2SD. This value is above 2SD. So this is violating the rule. So this is a warning rule, we can say. One value outside 2SD. Then one value outside 3SD. You can see one value outside 3SD. This is again, the results are not acceptable in this case. So all these rules. Now coming to the external quality assessment scheme, that is AQUAS, used to periodically assess the quality of a lab's performance and achieve added confidence in patients' test results. So results are objectively compared to other laboratories using the same methodologies, instruments and the reagents. So in the internal quality control, what we have seen that either we pool the sera and quality control is maintained in that case, in that way, or we take the ready-made sample, that is company made Randox or Roche. We take the vial, we reconstitute it. Daily we do quality control by that vial. Then external quality control, in that there is a need of central reference laboratory that sends a serum sample containing known quantity of a substance. So in this case, aqueous sample is of known quantity. This is analyzed in the peripheral lab. If the results obtained in this lab is the same as that of the reference lab, then the arrangements available in the peripheral lab is said to be reliable. So under the aqueous, we can say our lab, that is the lab of PGIMS, is participating in CMC aqueous this thing scheme with CMC Vellore. So every quarterly, we can say a vial comes to us, so that in that vial we have known concentration of all the parameters. We analyze it and we send the report to the CMC Vellore, and after reviewing those results, they provide us that whether we need to take the corrective action or not. So aqueous participation is often a requirement for the accreditation. If we need to accreditate our lab, so this is a must that we should participate in aqueous. So which is a third party assessment of the laboratory as per ISO 15189 standard and the proclaims international acceptability of the laboratory results. So clinical biochemistry laboratory PGIMS Rohtak regularly participates in annual aqueous program by CMC Vellore. So we are participating in this aqueous program through CMC Vellore. QC material is received in lyophilized. Lyophilized means freeze dried form quarterly. So we that vial is in the powdered form, we reconstitute it as per the instructions. That is, either we used to reconstitute by 3 ml of distilled water or 5 ml of distilled water, which is reconstituted and analyzed monthly as a sample. As a sample, we used to do the analysis of all the parameters in different labs, and then we send our results to the CMC Vellore for reviewing, and after reviewing those results, they send us the report that whether our results are up to the mark or not, whether we need to take the corrective action or not. So this is the aqueous cycle. Aqueous sample received. Okay, lab analysis aqueous samples. We used to analyze this that aqueous sample. Then results sent to aqua organizer. We send our results to the CMC Vellore. Then aqua report received there. Then aqua report reviewed by the CMC Vellore, and then corrective action taken if required. So this is the aqueous cycle. So I have put one clinical case study also related to this pre-analytical errors or variables. See, a 29-year-old pregnant woman, while waiting in the clinic for results of glucose tolerance test, complained of severe abdominal pain. A doctor was called to the laboratory to see the patient. Doctor suspected acute pancreatitis and requested the laboratory to assess serum amylase and lipase. So the technician performed the test using the plasma remaining from her glucose tolerance test. So serum amylase value was 180 units per liter, but her lipase value was normal. So in the meanwhile, patient felt comfortable after few minutes. Patient was comfortable, but the discrepancy in the laboratory result caused confusion in diagnosis. But doctor was thinking that how this amylase value was 180 units per liter. So doctor requested a repeat analysis. So a fresh blood sample was taken for the test. This time her serum amylase and lipase were found to be normal. So can you explain the discrepancy in the amylase results? Okay, do you think serum amylase value will come down to normal levels within few hours? Can you think that if due to pancreatitis serum amylase is raised and it can come down to the normal levels within few hours? So what are the conditions in which serum amylase is increased and what are the advantages of lipase estimation? So this is the answer in the first analysis. As you have seen, serum amylase was tested on serum samples taken from the blood sugar estimation. So of course, in that fluoride is added for blood sugar estimation. So fluoride will activate amylase. So in that case, we can say that this is the reason for the raised amylase. Okay, so this is one of the free analytical this thing variable that we have collected the sample in the we have analyzed the sample taken in the wrong vacutainer. Okay, pre-analytical errors are the most common cause of wrong laboratory results. So this is an example of a pre-analytical error. So thank you.